The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of witty uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the
Very
Situation
good morning
Room,
to you. Let's start the day at 7 minutes after 6 on this 5th day of November 2000, the Friday of the week. This is the 5th day. It's the first Friday of November. Kenya's biggest conversation begins now. Wherever you're tuned in, we're glad that you're able to join us. We're live on Spice FM, and we're live streaming the show on Spice FM KE, on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. And today, we're beginning the show from the end. Yes. So we'll do a newspaper review a little while later because we have a guest who has come in early in the because he has agreed, all right, because we want to have an important conversation with you. Can we accommodate one another? And he said, yes. And he's here with us. The Director of Public Prosecutions, Noordin Haji, joins us in the Situation Room. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
It's good to have you.
Thank you very much.
This early morning.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
It's good to see you as well, looking as good as you looked the last time you were here. You're not aging at all.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Oh, no, that is not aging.
Yeah, it's not age.
There's a young man here who has been like this since we met him.
At the tender age of 63, he doesn't feel old at all.
He hasn't changed.
And agreed.
Not one single bit. But a DPP, that is the hot seat, and welcome to the hot seat. But now, hot seat for you is... you are battle hardened. In fact, last week you quoted as having said, you are battle hardened. You have been to Somalia and survived, and you came back. You have been in this job, you have survived. So even if we warm up that seat to the degrees of about 1,500 degrees, that's just going to be lukewarm for you. So
I'm not sure about that.
Welcome to the lukewarm seat.
Thank you, Latif.
So what you were talking about last week in Mombasa, so there was the annual conference of Council on Administration of Justice, which brings together various actors in the justice sector.
Yeah.
The Chief Justice chairs it. We have the Office of the DPP, the Attorney General's Office, the Inspector General of Police, and the investigating agencies, EACC, DCI, Correctional Services. All of them were meeting to have a conversation, like you always do every year, to review the progress in accessing justice and the delivery of justice to the citizens. A number of things came out there. One of the things is what you said yourself, that it's very important that we all work together in harmony. We all understand the roles that we've been given by the Constitution and by statute, and we all do that work with collaboration with one another.
Yeah.
Why did you find it important and necessary to remind the people in the meeting of the job that they ought to be doing?
Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity. And as to the question, I felt it was important for me to put that out because even the theme of the meeting itself was collaboration, coordination, and coordination within the sectors. And I felt I didn't need to be a hypocrite by saying rosy things to Kenyans when really there was a problem. And I thought, or should have been, or would be, the most important forum to raise those issues, so that we can actually tackle them as they should, instead of just putting the things under the rug, acting as if everything is okay. Yet we have a problem, and that problem would actually affect our effectiveness to discharge our mandate to the Kenyans. So I thought that was important. Hypocrite.
What is the problem? Let me just quote what you said, and then you can expound on this. When I reflect, two things stand out: unity and service. The police are charged with investigations and enforcement. There are other constitutional and investigative agencies with special mandate, such as the EACC, the judiciary for adjudication, and correctional professional services for rehabilitation, reformation, and reintegration. The Constitution envisages independent institutions cooperating in a manner in which, even when there is tension, these are healthy and necessary to ensure the wheels of justice move seamlessly as each partner understands and plays their role with the realization that each partner's role is equally important. And then he went on to say, at times, partners overstep the boundaries of their constitutional mandate and then they delve into other people's mandates.
Yeah.
What's the problem, Bwana DPP?
Exactly what you said, that certain individuals have attempted or feel that things should be done the way they were done before. There was a reason why we had the 2010 Constitution. And I think I don't need to take Kenyans through the history that we went through. The purpose of the 2010 Constitution was to correct some of the wrongs that were done over the years during before independence, after, and during the multi-party era. The purpose of all documents, especially the Constitution, it serves as a framework and a guidance of how Kenyans who voted through a referendum wanted things to be done in certain ways and certain manners. And what this Constitution sought to do was to separate the various roles of the justice sector. And that's why I said, if it's investigators, their mandate is to investigate, prosecutors to prosecute, and the judiciary to adjudicate. And then you have the correctional services to reform an individual who has been found guilty and incarcerated in court. So you would not expect that a prosecutor would attempt to go to Parliament and ask to have the powers of the judge, and neither should the investigators, because this Constitution demarcated those roles. And even when it said that you could have additional investigative agencies, then you would have to refer to the Inspector General. If you need additional prosecution services, then you have to refer to the DPP. Because the Constitution is very clear that the Director of Public Prosecution exercises state powers. And state powers is the state of Kenya itself, and it's beyond even the government. And therefore, anything that therefore comes under that, it will have to be referred to the Director of Public Prosecutions. So, for example, if KRA wants to be able to prosecute, they would have to refer to the Director of Public Prosecution for him to give that consent. And it's captured in the various legislations. So when individuals attempt to hoard those powers and they want to be also prosecutors, then of course I have to defend that position, because that position is in the Constitution, and that's what Kenyans wanted. It's not about me as Noordin Haji, but it's about the Constitution that I swore to protect. And that's basically what I'm trying to do.
What is evident is that the job of the DPP is not a popularity contest.
No, it's not.
And in pursuit of the mandate that is given to you, I think the headwinds that you speak of is to be shared universally. But more so if you are given a tag of being a reformer. Reformer in this sense, anyone who seeks to actually abide by the strict dictates of the law, in many instances is seen as a reformer. Because if you live in a country like Kenya, where what is considered the norm is often completely against what the law actually states. And as you have pointed out, there are people who situation. That was a preamble. Now my question. How do you ensure that you keep body, soul, and mind together? And how do you ensure your safety and your sanity in pursuing this job?
First of all, thank you for, I don't know whether I should thank you or you've put me in hot soup. Thank you For as a reformer, I never looked at it that way. But I think the reforms have already been done by having this constitution. For us, is to just safeguard the constitution and ensure that it is implemented as it should be. But your question, for me, I think it's my family and my religion that keeps the sanity, and also the belief that I'm doing this for the sake of Kenyans, and that what I'm trying to safeguard here is for Kenyans and for my children also in the future, because if some of these things are allowed to be done the way they have been done before, and we just sit down comfortable, I could very well do that. But I don't think it will serve my interests, Kenyans' interests, and the interest of. So because of that, I my conscience is very clear. I'm comfortable, I'm happy, and I'm actually. Some people don't seem to understand that the more they bring the challenge, the happier I am to face it head on.
To rise up with the occasion.
Yeah, and hopefully I'll be able to do that. They're not cowering me in any way, as I've said before. So I think my family, my religion, and love of my country.
Has your life been in danger in any way? Have you been threatened?
Many times. If you look at the reports that were released during the 2013 Westgate, I think there were some intelligence reports that were there. Me and my family were actually targets, my late father and myself, by Al-Shabaab. And Al-Shabaab continues to that they will deal with us as a family and as an individual because of the work that we did, some of which I cannot discuss here. That has been there. I've been threatened even during this job by individuals who felt that my decision either to charge or not to charge was not favorable. And this is part of the work, and I think when I took this job I knew that this would be part of the territory, and I knew that if I was to ensure and to try and stick to the Constitution, then that threat would, of course, escalate. But I'm ready for that.
Right. There have been calls from many quarters asking you to resign or asking you to leave the position. Would you say that there is a misunderstanding of your mandate as defined, prescribed by the Constitution, as well as the Act, that there is a misunderstanding, and that's why they're asking you to leave the position? Or are there other issues at play here from what you see? More recently than not, these calls have come out more than they had previously. Why do you think this is?
Well, okay, but there are individuals maybe who do not understand the mandate. First of all, I must make it very clear that as prosecutors, we don't investigate. I know there are certain jurisdictions, especially civil jurisdictions, maybe jurisdictions that are in maybe South America and part of Europe that are civil in nature, and prosecutors actually oversee investigations themselves. In Kenya, it's a bit different. We are common law. There is that separation. Although when a file comes, then the prosecutor can direct, once the file is complete, then can direct the investigator that the file is complete or not complete. So sometimes there's that blurring, and people tend to confuse that. But for this, I think it's very particular. It's very targeted because of certain decisions that we've made, whether to charge or not to charge. The Constitution is very clear that I can be removed from office through the Public Service Commission, petitions to the Public Service Commission for particular reasons that have been outlined in the Constitution. One, either I'm incompetent, and they would have to prove what incompetent is. I'm I'm bankrupt, or I've been involved in gross misconduct. But to take me to task to the PSC because of a decision that I've made is not part of the requirements for removal. Those are issues that can be canvassed and challenged in court. And somebody can go either through judicial review, apply for to be allowed to prosecute privately because they're not satisfied with the decision that I've made. And that's why I'm saying it is very purposely targeted at me because of decisions that I've made, and not because I'm incompetent or I've been involved in gross misconduct or I'm bankrupt or insane. Yeah.
You know, your office is a very important cog in this wheel of justice, and you have certain powers. So, for instance, you have the powers to direct the investigative agencies to commence an investigation.
Yeah.
And when they do that, you also have the power to determine whether you're going to court or not.
Yes.
And I think what we've been hearing lately, especially from the office of the DCI, is that you're frustrating their work. In 2019, you launched the guidelines for the decision to charge.
Yes.
And what you said, now, okay, this is what we'll be considering as thresholds. And DCI seems to be saying, even despite there being some clear guidelines on how you shall make your decision, we still feel that you are coming back to us and saying, well, this is insufficient, and we're not convinced when you say it's insufficient evidence. How do you interact with the investigative agencies when they bring a file to you and you feel that we haven't reached the threshold? Do you explain to them the threshold and what ought to be done?
Yes, we explain the threshold. Actually, what we have is what we call a central intake. So we've started that pilot project in Nairobi, and we've digitized it. And once an investigator, for example, or police officer brings a file, then they're taken through the guidelines. And we've trained quite a number of police officers for them to understand what the guideline says and what is required. And if there are certain documentations that are missing, evidence that is required, then the prosecutor will explain to the police officer and then the investigating officer why we feel that the evidence is not sufficient, and we'll even guide them in terms of what are the documents that are missing and how they can go about getting them for us, so that we can then be able to go to court. You see, for a long time, what has been happening is a very skeleton file is brought. We are forced to make a decision on a very skeleton file, just saying that Latif was in the car and had a scuffle. Sometimes you don't even know who the parties are. Then we have to charge you. Once we've charged, the investigators now move on to another case. So now it's the prosecutor playing cat and mouse. Bring this evidence. We want this document. We want this. Then when you're in court, you look very, and that's when then the magistrate says,
insufficient evidence.
There's no evidence here. We are coming here for the last 1 year, 2 years. The case is not moving. Either withdraw the case or, bring the documentations that are required. So as prosecutors, then we are in a rock and a hard place. When you go back to the investigators, they have moved on. Some of them are, they tell you much work. That's a ni shida yenyu. So at the end of it, who suffers? It's the Kenyan. And that's why we came with these strict guidelines. And there is no way the guidelines will work without us being very strict and requiring that, whatever is required before a decision is made should be in the file. We are now not in the game of going to court and waiting for documentation for 2-3 years. The cases like Goldenberg and Anglo Leasing before 2010, they've been there for 15-16 years. How do we explain to Kenyans? And I think one of the commitments that I made when I was in Parliament, taking over the office, was that I will work on that. And I was very serious. And this is the gist of the problem.
The feeling, though, by the DCI Director, George Kinoti, is that there's, discrimination of these guidelines or the decision to charge.
I
So,
think
for instance,
that's
he said, we must apply the law equally without any discrimination. Otherwise, it's only the weak who will be subjected to the law, not the mighty. For us, the police, we treat all equally. There's no big man or small man when it comes to crime. We don't discriminate. Seems to apply that they come to you and they say, so there's this big person who's a judge who you should be taking to court. And you're saying there's no sufficient evidence. The DCI feels, what do you mean? Becoming a stumbling block.
No, you see, the law should be equally applied to everybody. And if you look at the bulk of our cases, actually cases that deal with the common mwananchi. And it is these cases that we have a big problem in terms of the kind of files that are brought to us. Not these big cases. Some of these big cases are complex in nature. Sometimes they delay because kind of compilation and the documents that are required. But if you go down to Makadara or Kibera, you will see that we are very strict, even with cases that are brought affecting the common mwananchi. So, for example, as ODPP, we said very clearly that these old colonial cases like touting, people are being charged for touting. Ile kusema shilingi moja, shilingi bus. They used to go and round up youth. If you don't pay 50 bob or 10 unaletwa, for us to be charged without a file, nothing. So we decided that some of those cases we are not going to deal with them anymore. In essence, we've even suspended them, and we have been very, 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 very strict. Now there is this thing called maeneo. If you are in maeneo fulani, you are rounded up and charged. No file, you don't even know what you're going to tell the magistrate. We have said no. And really, these big cases are just an excuse because, Kenyans will be more emotional with them.
Sure.
But the gist of the problem is that there are these cases that have been affecting wananchi that we are very strict on, and that we have said that the guidelines will have to be followed. This is what is bothering.
Let's take a break at this point. 29 minutes after 6. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Having a conversation with the Director of Public Prosecutions, Noordin Haji. He's with us this early morning as we look at this apparent supremacy battles in the criminal justice system. So does everybody understand their job, and what's the role of the DPP in this long chain? Let's take this quick break, take a look at the traffic. We will continue shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
If I'm found guilty, there is no problem. I'm willing to serve. I have no problem. Jails are meant for human beings.
They say a society gets the leadership it deserves. If you have a corrupt, crooked, and rotten society like we have in Kenya, then of course they will get.
I think the president should dissolve parliament. That's the best solution at this moment in time. Dissolve parliament.
All of you go home.
Yes, we all go home.
How are we encouraging other people who might have new and creative ideas? Young people who are making money without any government help. They are just buying their own bundles. They are going on TikTok and making money. KRA is coming after them.
I've been in parliament for 15 years. We have been unable to pass the gender law. And yet no presidential candidate is talking about it now. Because we are fake. All the men refused to vote for that law.
What did Sonko do to Pumwani maternity hospital?
Yeah, he
with
cleaned
his
it up.
own money.
Cleaned it with his own money. That was him as an individual.
Yeah. And I did not say he was cleaning his own money. I was saying he cleaned
Foot, mouth. Foot, mouth. Eric.
Okay.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
This morning at 16, highs of 23, lows of 16 today. It's partly sunny at 16 in Nakuru, highs of 26 and lows of 14. 14 will be the low in Nyeri, where it's sunny at 15, going to highs of 23. And Eldoret will have some sun this morning at 24. That'll be the high, coming down to lows of 13. It's currently at 15. Light rain in parts of Mombasa at 25, highs of 32 and lows of 24. While in Malindi, it's sunny at 27. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 26. It's sunny in Kisumu at 20. Highs of 20. While in Kakamega this morning, it's mostly clear at 17 with highs of 27. We'll see lows of 15. Let's out into Kampala where it's raining this morning at 18. Highs of 24 and lows of 16. Dar es Salaam is mostly sunny already at 25. Highs of 31 and lows of 24. Johannesburg this morning is clear at 15. That'll be today's low, going to highs of 25. And we're looking at rain in Lagos at 24. Highs of 32 today. Kinshasa's clear at 24. That'll be the low. Highs of 33. Looking quickly out into Beijing, highs of 17. Paris at 8 degrees is clear this morning, going to highs of 12 and lows of 1. Clear conditions in London at 5, highs of 11 today. And New York still Thursday night is 8 degrees. Coming into Friday, we'll see highs of 10 and lows of 4.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
And voila, just like that, things have changed. Well, just a little bit on the Thika Super building up right around the Pangani underpass, but nothing too crazy, at least for now. Survey driving all the way through to Outer Ring, that is absolutely clear. It looks good for Friday. This is a time to be out and take advantage of the clear roads today. It's building up on Kiambu Road, coming out towards that junction, not a problem. Coming out of Westlands though, Mudangari, that whole area through to James Gishuru, out onto Waiaki Way, looking slow. Don't forget Red Hill Link Road, that'll help you out this morning. Wilson Airport on Langata Road, that's where we see some build-up. Bass Road at the Imara Daima stretch is where the issue is. But we're not yet in traffic hour. We'll take a look at what it looks like in a short while. Talk to us, though, on Spice FMKE on Twitter. Text on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent morning. Spice up yourself.
It continues. Kenya's biggest conversation in the Situation Room this morning is Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, CT Muga, and our guest, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Noordin Haji. Noordin, you took office in April 2018, and immediately you took office, you went to work, and there was a lot of goodwill from the public when they started seeing, there's more course of justice. Goodwill from the other actors in the system, and also goodwill from the national executive. Over time, that goodwill seems to be waning. In fact, I'm even looking at some of the comments, and people are saying, okay, so he has lately turned out to be sluggish. We are losing hope on him. Just one comment from Francis Odipo. Now, if we look at a number of things that you were doing in those first 2019, there was a lot of movement. The Kamata Fridays, big cases, big arrests, taking people to court. And then we look back at the progress of those cases and you start asking questions. What's happening? The Aurora and Kimorel Dam, you have recently gone and now said, let's consolidate files. You have said, let's drop charges against some people so who will become state witnesses. And in fact, we're even asking ourselves on this show, so 2 years down the road, DPP has just now realized that the case number 1 and case number 2 are similar and the witnesses are similar. Where was the DPP all this time? I mean, how do you explain some of these things that are now happening in court?
Thank you. On the Kimorel and on Aurora case, first of all, the separation of the files was a direction by the courts. And then secondly, we had a strategy that I will explain. But what you said, therein lies the problem. And that is the problem that we are trying to deal with now. That when we go to court and we charge, we are ready and we have the evidence and we are able to proceed seamlessly. And this is part of the problem that some of my colleagues don't seem to understand. That rush to court to please the mass, but at the end of it, then you are stuck there, trying to get the documents that you want, trying to apply for mutual legal assistance from other countries. That takes ages. So we had to sit down on the drawing table and say, hey, when we rush, there's that feel-good effect. And then after a while, then Kenyans now come and ask, what is this? guys are not. So do we do that to play to the gallery, or do we bite the bullet and say we are going to do this very systematically and at the end get the desired results that are required? If you go to any country, for example, in the States and other countries that we look up to in terms of democracy and all that, you will see that cases take 3-4 years before they're brought into court. Because what they're doing is they're being very, very thorough. Especially if you look at some of the cases that involve corruption, just pick any that has been brought. You will see that they've taken 3-4 years back and forth between prosecutors and investigators, ensuring that the documentations are there, ensuring that when we go to court, we are able to tell the court, here's the money. We have traced this money, we have traced the assets, and we are willing now, we are ready to go forward, even if it will take 1 year in court. We have everything and we are ready to disclose at the click of a finger. The practice for a long time has been, we charge, then now you start dancing in court. Leo tupatie hii time, investigator iko busy, ako Mombasa, mwingine sijui ako hapi, ameenda cause, amefanya hii. Nobody takes these things seriously. So when you come back and now say we are going to take this thing seriously, and we must be ready at the click of a finger when we are before he says we are ready to go, we are ready to go. But there is resistance to that. But this is where we must go. It is hard. It's not going to be easy. But as a country, we must move forward. Justice must seem to be done at all times. This is what we are trying to achieve.
But how do you balance that? Because there's still the public interest angle, and there's the public still maintaining trust in the investigative prosecution agencies.
So
we
Latif,
see that there's corruption here.
Yeah.
There is corruption, let's just pick an agency, KEMSA.
Yeah, yes.
All right, so there's all this corruption talk, and if we say that we're going to take 5 years before we see the DPP taking people to court, in the 5 years' time, people will have lost confidence.
So the other side of the coin is this. We rush, we charge. Know what we are charging them for. As you're waiting for the documentations, they're clearing and ensuring that they're destroying some of the evidence. So 5 years down the line, you get bashed. Yeah, the case collapses. You don't recover anything. Sasa jameni, are we going to continue like that? What we are saying, it will not take 5 years. It can take a year. Thoroughly. Yeah. And if, for example, there are documents that have been destroyed, and there are many ways of going about that. We can charge the people who have done that. We can suspend people as they wait. We can freeze their accounts. We can freeze their assets. But get the case, ready in a position where we are able to prove beyond reasonable individual committed that crime. That's what we want to do. And once that is accepted, then you will see that you don't even need the 1 year. Yeah. Depending on how complex the crime is.
There's you mentioned some of the explanations you hear. People are overwhelmed. There isn't enough time. People have been transferred. Involved in these processes are professionals. If it is the investigative arm of the government, these are people who are trained. This is what they're trained to do. So when we have a situation in this country where we are constantly dealing with cases that are thrown out of court, and it's always there. It's like the magistrate gives your officer addressing down and says, what on earth do you think you're doing? Why do you bring these cases before you plan them? Now, this is my thinking. How do people who who know what they're supposed to do, bring about a situation where we are always dealing with something that seems to be amiss, and yet it is their duty to ensure that nothing of this sort is actually amiss? I am saying, not you, that it bespeaks of a deliberate effort to actually sabotage the end result that is required. Meaning, let this thing go to court. You know very well what is going to happen because you are in charge of the evidence. You know what you can do with the evidence. If it isn't there, it'll stay in court. It'll either be forgotten, and don't we have cases upon cases in this country where somebody even wonders. I remember a story I was being told about one former, well, he's a politician, Koigo Mwere, and he told this friend of mine that one of the things that he realized in the time when he was detained a number of times.
Yeah.
He said, sometimes what would happen is they would actually forget they've detained you. You'd be languishing in prison thinking, but they've long forgotten. I mean, they arrested you, they threw you in, but they've forgotten. So 3 years down the line, someone says, hey, where's this guy? Oh, you mean he's still in? Oh, please, remove him. There's no... Now, that was in a time gone by. Would we be wrong if we say that some of these things that we witness are a clear indication of a deliberate, a purposed activity meant to ensure that just the justice that we're seeking is not actually arrived at?
Mzee Kijana, let me put it this way. We have been so used to doing that, that it has become a norm. Even when actually you're not doing it deliberately, it's become practice and customary to do some of these things. You know, just where boss we fanya tu iende bana, itoke hapa kwa desk yangu. Sometimes it's not even deliberate. It has just been inculcated in us, and this is what we're trying to change. And this is where the resistance is, as they say, you know, change is not easy. But we are trying to do that. We are having a lot of resistance, but hopefully we'll get there. Some of the resistance is just that people just don't want to change because it's cumbersome. You know, it will, you know, you need to use your brain because this is a very complex case. You will have to look for experts. Sasa hii kazi imekuwa ngumu. But you see, things have changed. The magistrates that are sitting there today are very switched on individuals. You're not going to just go and say, ati will ask you aliiba vipi na ilifika vipi kwake na hii pesa iko wapi. So how do I explain that? If without having the documentations and the proper charts to show how the monies were stolen, who was involved, and you know how the whole scheme and conspiracy came about.
Noordin, even as you say that, I'm also looking at a situation, yes, indeed, where things have been done a certain way for the longest period of time. And that what it out to the members of the public is that there's a reluctance actually to justice, right? That's on one side. But isn't it possible also that there is a reluctance to actually bring some of these folks to book, in the sense that, look, nobody wants to go to jail, whether you've done it or not, right? Nobody wants to be prosecuted. So people will go above and beyond their own capacity, even possibly working with people in your very own office to make sure that these things are not done. So there's a circumvent, even while you're here, tooth and nail sweating, trying to get it done. There are those who are working within your very system to make sure these things do not come to light. Is that reality still not there?
Yeah, it is still there. It's all over. You can never, as I said when we were just chatting here, first of all, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm human. There are certain things that I might have made mistakes with. I'm trying to correct some of the perception that I had when I came in. Once the reality hit, I discovered Allah. You know, of course there are people within my own system, within the whole justice sector. They don't want change. That's all over the world. These things happen, and I am cognizant of that. What we are doing is we are trying to create change within the ODPP, and hopefully it will have a ripple effect to the whole justice sector. That's what we are trying. We are trying to do as ODPP.
How important do you think communication is to the people of Kenya?
It's
when
very
these
important.
things you're doing, letting people know, even if you can't do a step by step, but keeping Kenyans abreast of what is going on, because again, there is that mentality that the small cases you able to find this information. The big cases, whether or not you're dealing with, external documentation or external processes that need to be brought into, the thought is that, all right, the little fish will be caught much quicker than the bigger ones, and that's where the interest is. Somebody steals a loaf of bread, and by the end of the day, they're in for 10 years, right? But somebody steals hundreds of millions, and they're walking about scot-free. Understanding the process is simple if it's so where does communication play a role here in terms of what your office is doing?
I must say we're trying our best. We have the ODPP Café, for example. Within Twitter and Facebook, we try and explain our positions. That's why I'm here today, to try and explain what we are doing. And I think as ODPP, we have been as open as possible. Probably even sometimes we've been accused of being too open. Sasa wewe kwa nini unazungumza sana bwana? And it's only because we are trying to explain to the Kenyan public. We had outreach programs that we were going to the public. We went to Kayole, we were planning, but then COVID then kicked in. We are now trying to see if we can restart that. And explaining to the Kenyans so that they understand their rights and they understand why we are making certain decisions. And we've been really trying our best. Hopefully it's working and Kenyans are getting what we want, and we will strive to try and explain more. What we've also tried to do is not to be malicious, not to be vindictive. Hii ni kazi tu. So nikisema file haiko tayari, I'm not fighting you, Latif, because you're the IO who brought this. Ni kazi tu nakuambia hii haiko. It's not personal. I've ensured that we are not personal. While certain quarters have been very personal to the extent that they sponsor people to remove some of their colleagues from office. But we have tried to be as professional as possible.
Right.
That's why I said this isn't a popularity contest.
No, it's not.
When you refer to a reform agenda, yes, the Constitution of Kenya is considered a reform document. It isn't reform until it is actualized. I mean, for instance, how many people know the founding fathers of the American Constitution? How many people actually know them? People know Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin. But the person who's known more than anybody else is Abraham Lincoln. Because he operationalized it. The one thing is remembered for the emancipation of slaves. Now,
and he was killed for that.
I think you have read my mind, because it's unfortunate that the process of reform involves stepping on toes which are actually where they shouldn't be. I mean, it's a path that people are meant to be walking. Someone has gone and put their foot there. But let me ask the question. Do you really think that the efforts that you are putting in will bear fruit, and that a culture of doing right can actually be established within the system currently in charge of?
I'm hopeful that as Kenyans we can achieve that. The fact that wewe unafahamu it just speaks volumes, that not in a bad way, but I'm just saying a lot of Kenyans want to see change. And they actually want to see the actualization, as you said, of the Constitution itself, the legal documents that we have, so that they're just not mere papers, but they're living documents that are guiding us for a better Kenya. And I'm hopeful, because wherever you go, Kenyans, want to see that change. I'm happy that people are taking us to task, for example. I've said in Swahili, kukosolewa si kukosana. There's no way that we can change ODPP, for example, better without understanding some of the criticism that are out there. And we're happy to take them and see how constructively we can better ourselves. And that Kenyans are switched on and they're following, whether it's through Twitter or wherever, it encourages us that we are on the right path, and that Kenyans want to change. They want to see the change, and that hopefully we are going to be that change. change catalyst.
Said, I mean, you got into office and you've taken a step back now and seen there are very many things that have been happening. We are taking cases to court, and then we realize we don't have all the legs to stand on in this particular case. They say in Kiswahili, mtego wa panya uanasa waliomo na wasiokuwemo. Right? A mousetrap will capture the culpable and the innocent. Now I'm speaking for the innocent. With the cases that are there in court, just even to the small cases,
Yes.
are you in a position to just review all of them? And for the sake of the innocent, because we've said it here before, when somebody is taken by the DPP or the prosecutor to court, you get into a system. You're bonded by court. That means your property and your money is held by court. Your travel documents are held by court. Your life is basically
on
hold until this case shall complete. Now, there are people who are genuinely innocent and there are people who are genuinely guilty. And it's prosecution that it shall be determined. But if you look at the files, is it possible for you to see, all right, in this particular cases, I have very many innocent people. Can I just drop charges and start afresh?
Yes.
For the sake of the innocent.
And that's why you have the word miscarriage of justice. And this happens all over the world. If you look at, for example, I like referring to the States because a lot of Kenyans look up to that and aspire to be like the United States. There's a lot of cases of miscarriage of justice. There was a particular, I can't remember, but in New York, for example, 9 individuals who were prosecuted. And at the end, when this was reviewed 30 years later, they were found innocent. And of course, as ODPP, if we're asked upon to review, we review. And that's why when documents come, we look at them thoroughly. And if there isn't sufficient evidence, we are not willing to proceed. Because we don't accused of or end up being involved in miscarriage of justice. That happens, we are cognizant of that, and we try our best. At the end of it, we are also humans. You can make mistakes. Sometimes the way the evidence is compiled, you never know the interest or the intentions of the investigator, for example, or even the prosecutor. So there are instances, there's quite a number of them in the system, and we are trying our best to review them. For example, even the miscarriage of justice, even when we had a program that was called All for Justice, and we went all over the country. And in Nakuru, we found an individual who has been in remand for 14 years. Remand, yes, in Nakuru, for 14 years. And when you even ask for the file, it is in tatters. Hata ujui uanze wapi. So it's happening. And it's unfortunate, and we are trying our best to review those things.
Please go ahead.
A question which could be a message, and many could be thinking, hoping. Are you corruptible?
Hopefully not. And maybe that's part of the problem, because if I was corrupt, hizo petition ingekuwa petition. And I pray to God that I don't fall into the trap.
You know, there's a matter we bring up in the studio ever so often, but with regards to our police service. It's not your purview, but as a citizen, you can comment. Do you really believe that the arms of government that are charged with investigative matters, do you feel that they're adequately resourced to do?
Well, first of all, you know, there are bad apples within the police, and there are individuals who probably should not be there because they don't have the requisite. But a majority of the police are doing a great job, and a majority of them want to do better. Of course, as a country, we have limitation in terms of resources, but I think if last 4 or 5 years, a lot of resources have been injected into the police. But I believe more can be. If we have the means, then more should be done to the police. We are discussing about corruption cases, but there are many other cases that they're dealing with. They're dealing with, for example, terrorism very effectively. of resilience. Organized crime, for example, we are prosecuting a lot of organized crimes. There's even cyber crime that people probably still don't know that it's happening in Kenya. But the investigators are doing a great job there. Capacity has been built, both of the police and even the intelligence, in terms of being able to collect and being able to face those challenges. So there's very done. And unfortunately, these small differences in terms of especially corruption cases has brought out something that is not as big as people would think.
Right.
If you go down to the counties, we are working very well. Both investing prosecutors and the police are trying their best. Couples. Hopefully that is invite the IG here.
As we conclude the conversation this morning, Noordin Haji, speak to Kenyans. They're all seeing this. I mean, you have been taken before the Public Service Commission. The number of petitions have been lodged.
And more are going to be lodged.
And more are coming. Speak to Kenyans today and talk to them about the job that you're doing and why they should continue believing that man for this job.
I thought I've been doing that all the time.
Summarize it now.
One more time.
Well, as I said, it's a culture that we have to change, and we are trying to do that as ODPP. We are trying to be the catalyst that would bring change in terms of how effective the justice system can be. Prosecutors are referred to as the guardians this sector, in the sense that we are the gatekeepers. Anything that needs to come to the judiciary, then ODPP is the one that does it. And we are trying to do that, not for our sake, not for my sake, but for the sake of Kenyans. We are trying to build institutions and not individuals.
Okay.
And that is where the resistance is. But we are hopeful that we'll be able to do that. And we are asking Kenyans to be patient for us to realize so that the wheels of justice work and Kenyans can see them working. Okay. We don't want to play to the gallery, because if you do that, then there is a side effect to it, which is ineffectiveness and delays.
And miscarriage of justice.
Yeah.
Noordin Haji, the Director of Public Prosecutions, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, sir.
Come again soon. And it's important, and I think it's good that you've even said it yourself, it's important that these offices are open to scrutiny.
Yeah.
These are concerns about the ODPP, about the DCI, about the police, about the judiciary. Asante sana.
Asante sana. God bless.
Have a lovely day. Good morning. It's 7 a.m.